Now, to give you more insight on the matter, we are joined by Tony Gosling. He's an investigative journalist from Bristol, and also joining us is Bruno Biclini, academic and political analyst from Porto Alegre, Brazil. Gentlemen, welcome to the program. I hope you're well. My first question is for Tony Gosling. The IAEA resolution has been criticized for being politically motivated rather than based on factual evidence. How does this impact the credibility of the IAEA as a neutral international body?
Well, of course, it's not neutral anymore. It tries to pretend to be neutral, just like many international bodies, all the way down to things like the International Olympic Committee. Many of them over decades have been slowly taken over, infiltrated by the Anglo-Zionist empire, the Europeans and the Americans essentially. So they have seen many of these organisations as ways of gaining them sort of international influence. But the fact is that the IAEA should, of course, be focusing much, if not all, of their effort on Israel. This is a state which today has been confirmed as committing genocide, allegedly suspected genocide, with the arrest warrants making it impossible for the Prime Minister Netanyahu to travel around the world. So far as I know, there are no arrest warrants against the Iranian Prime Minister or President. They can still travel around the world, and yet we've got a nuclear-armed doomsday cult in Israel, which is not being investigated by the IAEA. So of course it's a biased organisation, but you know what? This is taking place against a backdrop of what is effectively like a cell dividing in the world, because we're dealing with a dying empire. The Anglo-Zionist empire is dying economically, politically. It's battling its own people through privation, things like food banks, economic measures, austerity, cutting back public services right across the board. And the empire is attempting to revive itself through Donald Trump. Whether it will manage to do that is a whole nother question. But you know, this is the backdrop against these IAEA decisions, and it's important also to mention the chemical and biological weapons groups around the world. They're also very heavily influenced by the Anglo-Zionists, and so it's difficult for countries like Iran to get a fair hearing. And at any rate, the real danger, particularly in the Middle East, in West Asia, is Israel, and we're not hearing very much about them, are we?
That's right. Now, Mr. Biclini, same question. What do you think about this? Like, the IAEA resolution has been criticized for being potentially motivated rather than based on factual evidence. But how does this impact the picture that we have of the IAEA as a neutral body?
That's what the colleague just said a few moments ago. Day by day, the international worldwide system, the powers that be on the post-Bretton Woods institution, the post-World War II institutions, they're falling down. The same happens with the International Atomic Agency. I've heard, for example, here in Brazil, quite 30 days ago, that some journalists were spreading that Iran already do have the nuclear bomb. Because of what? Because of what? Antony Blinken posted a text venting this possibility, speculating on this possibility, and then the pro-Western media, they consider what they speculate about as a true, as something that's already happening. This is a true-false lie. The other aspect that the colleague just said, let's talk the things as they are really and what they really exist. I never heard in all of my life an inspection on the Dimona reactor in the occupied territories of 1948. So it is what's going on. They are falling down their own institutions.
Right. Mr. Biclini, staying with you, Iran has consistently upheld its right to peaceful nuclear energy under the NPT framework. Why do you think Western powers continue to target Iran's nuclear program despite its transparency?
Well, I think that there are two reasons. One is much more cruelty. It's a pure cruelty, much more cruel, because the development of atomic energy for peaceful reasons may achieve for any country a self-determination on high technological medicine and hospital interventions. So as far as a country does have sovereignty on energy, defense, airspace, and health system, it can be the owner of their own destiny. And that's the reason that they cannot allow Iran to have atomic energy being developed for peaceful reasons. And the other one is to try to consider a so-called legitimate target to promote intervention from Israel or from United States Air Force against an installation of Iran of atomic energy. They are trying to stall this discourse so they can allow their own audience to see what they are going to do. They're going to try to bombard the Iranian facilities. This is what they are going to do.
Yeah. Now, Mr. Gosling, given Iran's growing alliances with emerging powers like Russia and China, do you see this resolution as a reactionary attempt by Western nations to maintain their influence in global politics?
Well, look, in a way, the resolution is like a preemptive strike because there are intentions from the United States, quite whether they will come to fruition or not is anyone's guess, to attack with Israel, to attack Iran. Let's just be clear and open about this. They harbour these sorts of desires. And in order to justify that to their public, potentially they may use this sort of a resolution to do so, trying to pretend that they've got some kind of official approval to do so. But look, this kind of thing could literally explode into a far more dangerous, with nuclear weapons being used in a conflict, quite potentially. In fact, it's about 85 years, just coming up for 85 years, since the actual invention of the atomic bomb, which wasn't actually in the United States. It was a Hungarian and a German in Nuffield University in Birmingham, here in Britain. At the end of 1940, beginning of 1941, this idea was first put together, and they started to develop this over in the United States, something which became, this is Frisch and Piles, by the way, both Eastern European and German chaps over in Birmingham in England, and this was developed over in the Manhattan Project, which then developed the first test, the Trinity test, and the first use of the two atom bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. But nuclear weapons now are a very different thing. If people are wondering what they might be, a weapon can be, for example, an electromagnetic pulse weapon, which is detonated many, many miles, 100 miles almost above a country, which will knock out all of the electronics within that country. So these sorts of other types of nuclear weapons exist, not just these ones. And to be honest with you, I think we need to be much more concerned about a first strike by the United States or Israel or Britain, possibly even using American nukes, or even a false flag attack using one of these rogue nuclear weapons like the South African nuclear weapons that went missing at the end of apartheid, than we do be concerned about Iran, who of course passed this famous fatwa against nuclear weapons with the understanding, the very moral understanding, that this kind of weapon should never be used because it was so indiscriminate and immoral to kill so many civilians with a nuclear weapon. So the IAEA are totally out of touch with all these cutting edge talking points that they should be discussing day after day, but they don't, because actually they seem to me to be really a kind of outpost of this Anglo-Zionist empire I was talking about.
Mr. Gosling, again, staying with you, now considering Iran's pivotal role in supporting the resistance against Israel's aggression, could this resolution be seen as a part of a broader effort to deter Iran's strategic responses to regional developments?
Well, I don't think it's going to work because I think the Iranian leadership are mature enough to understand that if a little organisation like the IAEA says something, it will still do what it feels is the most important thing to do to protect its people, and also to protect other people in the Middle East who are being threatened by what is effectively a crusader state. It's like literally something from 800 years ago, the Crusades, when the European knights in shining armor on horseback came over to the Middle East to take over Jerusalem, install kings like King Baldwin in Jerusalem, and then eventually, of course, they were removed by people like Saladin on the Islamic side, and they had to go back home. Actually, the Crusades, for many historians say, were really more of a battle between the Roman Church in Rome and the Church of Constantinople, and a way of getting knights to come and fight the Orthodox Church, which of course is now, based effectively in Moscow, and of course the Greek Orthodox Church, the Eastern Orthodox Church. They were two fighting factions of the same Christian church, and the Orthodox, of course, managed to survive all that. And so this is a crusade, I think, with Israel, something that's actually been being planned by the Zionists to pretend to be any part of the sort of mainstream Jewish thinking. They have been working on convincing many people that this is actually a Jewish state, when many Jews themselves, even Orthodox Jews, particularly Neturei Karta and people like this, will tell you this has nothing to do with the Old Testament. It's really just a political move. And of course, many of the Zionists were indeed secular individuals. They had no religious belief or faith whatsoever. And so this is what they're trying to do, is cook up this conflict as a way of trying, I think, to lash out as their empire slowly goes down across the Western world particularly, but literally economically as well, being beaten by the BRICS countries. They are fighting for domination, a domination which they are destined, I can tell you, to lose.
That's right. Now, Mr. Biklini, final question, very briefly if you can. Do you see this resolution affecting the resistance in any way possible, especially Iran's support for the resistance?
No. It's totally out of effect. I cannot believe or accept that a statement from the International Atomic Energy will stop a resolution from the Islamic Republic of Iran. Simple like that. It's impossible. They must understand that Iran is a sovereign country and do have strategic alliance with the axis of resistance, and will not stop until the end of the Zionism. Simple like that.
Thank you so much. Those were Tony Gosling, investigative journalist, joining us from Bristol, and also Bruno Biklini, academic and political analyst, joining us from Porto Alegre from Brazil. Thank you.